Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be about gluten. And the truth is that I've been hiding something for the last couple of months because I wanted to be completely sure before I spoke about it openly and publicly. So today I think is the time for me to finally address the elephant in the room. So right now I feel like I am starting from scratch. I'm having a bit of an identity crisis because here on YouTube and in my personal life as well, I've been known as the girl who makes really good sourdough bread. I've been so into sourdough and all kinds of gluten-based meals, and it's been such a huge part of my life. I mean, my husband is Italian, so pasta and pizza was a huge part of our lives. And right now I feel like I have to relearn how to live, I have to relearn how to cook, and I have to reinvent my channel because so much of it was about sourdough and eating everything, getting rid of food fears. And right now I'm the one who is not eating gluten, but it's a change that needs to be made. If you've been following my healing journey for a while, you'll remember that 3.5 years ago when I found out I had Hashimoto's, at the same time I also found out that I had gluten antibodies, the gliadin antibodies, which is the protein in wheat. And at that time I went off gluten for 6 months to see if it would make any difference for the way I felt, for my thyroid health. But I concluded that it didn't make any difference. I didn't feel any better. So after those 6 months, I started eating gluten again. Now that I look back, I see that things were actually getting better. My blood tests were so much better. My iron levels were getting better. My hair was so much nicer. My skin and everything seemed to be getting better, but at that time, unfortunately, I preferred to just hide my head in the sand and continue eating gluten, because gluten is like a drug. You will invent all kinds of excuses why you should eat them. And during those 6 months, I also wasn't 100% strict. I did cheat once every couple of weeks or so. And with gluten, if you have celiac, or if you have celiac disease, or if you have gluten intolerance, it can take up to 6 months or sometimes even more for the immune system and for the intestinal system to calm down after gluten exposure. So as I kept cheating every 2 weeks or so, my body basically never had any time to recover and calm down. So me saying that I didn't see any results from a gluten-free diet was basically not being truthful to myself. I feel that so many people make that mistake. It's very difficult to be 100% gluten-free the whole time, but unless you are, I really can't tell if it makes any difference for your body. Once I started eating gluten again, I kept eating it for the next 3 years. I started just with sourdough bread, and sourdough is supposed to have almost all of the gluten broken down, so it should be much easier to digest. Then I moved on to pasta and pizza and all the other foods, and in the end I started eating everything for around 3 years. And yes, I did feel much better. I managed to put my Hashimoto's into remission, which I'm very, very happy about. But at the same time, there were some lingering issues that no matter what I did, I just couldn't get rid of them. I had really painful periods until luckily I got pregnant, and I haven't had any painful period ever since because I'm still breastfeeding. I had some weird nutrient deficiencies that I just couldn't shift. I had really wonky, unstable moods and energy levels. I could be really happy and full of energy 1 hour and then suddenly totally crash, and I wasn't happy about that. I had more hair loss than I should have had. And now that I'm postpartum as well, my hair was falling out like crazy. I know it's supposed to fall out postpartum, but this was way more than normal postpartum hair loss. And also talking about my thyroid, even though my Hashimoto's went into remission and my free T3 and free T4 levels were fine, but my TSH kept being stubbornly high, and that's also something that was continuously on my mind and I wasn't happy about. Now, when I got pregnant just over a year ago, I felt amazing for most of the pregnancy, and that's because when you're pregnant, your immune system weakens in order to protect the baby, not to attack it. At the same time, it stopped attacking the gluten and the intestinal tract, so I was able to absorb more nutrients than I would normally do. And so everything was amazing for me. I was full of energy, my moods were great, my skin and hair were great, everything was just so much better. And unfortunately, once I gave birth, once my immune system went back to normal, all the symptoms, all the problems became so much stronger than before. And from what I read, it seems that it's very common. Most people, most women with celiac start experiencing symptoms after giving birth to the first child. And I feel like that's what happened to me as well, because pregnancy is stressful, but the actual birth is way more stressful because the actual process is quite traumatic for the body. At the same time, the huge fall in hormones that happens right after is also extremely stressful to the body. And then if you add the sleepless nights, all the stress of being a new parent, of this huge change in your life, and all of this together is a perfect opportunity for celiac disease or gluten intolerance to really come out and show its face. And I feel like that's what happened to me. After giving birth, gradually I started experiencing stronger and stronger symptoms. But it took me a long time to connect them with gluten. So at the beginning I was really anxious and I had trouble sleeping, but I guess it's kind of normal. Most new moms feel like that. I started getting really constipated, and then out of the blue having really loose stools, and then just basically alternating between constipation and loose stools. Like I said earlier on, I started getting a lot of hair loss, like way more than I should have. And at the same time, I had really itchy and sore scalp. The way I would explain it is if you had a really tight high ponytail in for a couple of weeks non-stop, and then you took out that ponytail and you would feel your scalp really sore and tight. That's exactly how my scalp felt, and the hair loss was happening in the areas where the scalp was really sore. And later on I figured out that it was all because of gluten in my hair products, but that's a topic for another video. That's a lot to talk about as well. I had increasingly dry skin in certain areas of my body, like my elbows, my soles. Also, I felt itchy all over. The first few weeks after giving birth especially, I just couldn't stop itching all over. It was crazy. And that itching remained, especially around my arms, around my elbows. That was just driving me absolutely crazy. I had almost a continuous sore throat, burning in my throat, really sore mouth, sore tongue. And something that was quite new to me was random stomach aches. The actual stomach would just burn and hurt out of the blue, and I couldn't connect it to anything I had eaten. I had a lot of flatulence, and again, it's not something that I would normally have. It was totally out of the blue. My teeth got really sensitive, and at the beginning I thought, oh, it's just because I'm breastfeeding. It takes out a lot of nutrients from you and it's quite normal, but that was more than that. It wasn't normal for me. And then finally I had proper hay, and then I had really strong hay fever symptoms. So really runny nose, itchy eyes, watering eyes, everything like that I didn't have at all during the pregnancy. And it all started a couple of months after my son was born. All of these issues were annoying, but they probably weren't enough to convince me to do something about it. But the thing is that my baby Leonardo started experiencing some issues as well. So because I was so tired and sluggish, and he had some explosive, frequent, quite watery stools, I thought I would try to go off dairy, because that's the number one intolerance in little babies. So I thought I would try to get off it and see what happens. The thing is that once I did, Leonardo started pooing green every single day. And I think what happened is that when I stopped eating dairy, I replaced it with more wheat, with more bread, with more gluten-based foods, because I had to eat something. I'm breastfeeding, so I need a lot of food. And while before I used to make sourdough bread, but at that time it was really hot, so we temporarily stopped making sourdough bread and started buying bread from the supermarket. And that's when he started really suffering and started pooing green. So that made me finally realize that I should try to get off gluten and see what happens. So I did. I introduced dairy back into my diet and got rid of gluten instead. It was 2 months ago, and he hasn't pooed green even once since then. And the change in him has been amazing. He was a little bit irritable, happy baby, but not as happy as he could be. But after he went off gluten, he became like a different baby. He's just so chilled, so happy. He used to have a little trouble falling asleep. He started falling asleep so easily, and he was so happy. So it's been almost 2 months gluten-free, and so far the thing that amazes me the most is how I have zero cravings. I mean, 2 months with zero cheating, and I don't want any of that. No sourdough, no pizza, no pasta, and I don't miss them. I think that this time I'm probably mentally ready for it. Also, I'm not doing it just for myself, but also for my baby, which makes it so much more worthwhile. And the changes in my health and in my mental health are just so worth it that I just don't want to risk it. I don't want to feel rubbish again. The big confirmation for me was when I went off gluten, and literally overnight I lost 2 kilos. And obviously you can't lose 2 kilos of fat in a night, it's just impossible. But I think what happened when I stopped eating gluten is that the inflammation in my body went down, and my body released all of that excess water that it was holding on to while it was really inflamed. So I woke up so much lighter, and since then I've lost, I think, around 8 kilos in 2 months. Just crazy. I mean, I'm eating as normal, I'm eating a lot, I'm not on any diet at all. But just because of the inflammation going down, my body is releasing all of that water, and I feel really lean, really light, really healthy and strong. And I really hope that things will just get better and better from this point onwards. I've made my peace with the fact that I'll probably never be able to eat gluten again, and that's perfectly fine for me. As far as it concerns me, I think I have celiac disease, and that's totally fine for me. As long as I don't eat gluten, I feel great, and I think it's a very small price to pay to feel great and to prevent all the more serious illnesses in the future. My sister does actually have celiac disease. I'm pretty sure that my dad has it too, but I'm not in touch with him, so I can't confirm it, and I can't get him to test it. So it's very likely that I have it too. I did have gluten antibodies, which can mean either celiac disease or non-celiac gluten intolerance. But in order to confirm it, I would have to have an intestinal biopsy, which I just don't want to do. I don't see the point in it. So I'm just going to treat myself as a celiac from now on, because, you know, whether it's celiac disease or gluten intolerance, in any case, gluten isn't good for me and I need to stay away from it. So the actual diagnosis doesn't really make a difference. And for now, everything is good on my front. I feel good. My baby Leonardo is feeling good too. We are doing pretty well off gluten. So I'm very excited to see where this new journey takes me. And I guess I'll be sharing some gluten-free recipes and maybe updates to tell you what's been happening in my healing journey, because I know there are so many of you who are off gluten as well, or who are just starting to be gluten-free. And I think it's quite encouraging to see results that somebody else is having who's maybe further along on the road. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. At the beginning I was really confused and sad, but now I'm actually excited about this new journey ahead of me, and I really hope that you will continue on the journey with me. So thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.